Hello, everybody. Mark Levin here. Our number, 877-381-3811, 877-381-3811. On freedom of the press. You know, ladies and gentlemen, the president's been right. We've all been hesitant to agree. But the modern mass media, the Democrat Party media, are the enemy of the people. They are the enemy of the people. And among those right now, in terms of this so-called impeachment inquiry, the legal analysts are the gravest threat to this republic. You know, it's one thing to write columns. It's one thing to be a former prosecutor. It's one thing to be a former judge, an independent counsel, whatever it is. Because you can sit back and look back at events. And then make an analysis. And then show everybody how smart you are. But in real time, when events are taking place, like hearings, you need to have the poise, the sober insight, and the reasoning ability to sit tight. And to take in all the information before you draw truly insane conclusions. And you're going to be pressed to draw truly insane conclusions, and in real time, because that's the nature of the modern media. No circumspection whatsoever. And they call this news. It's not news. It's propaganda. And so we've had legal analysts say that the President of the United States may face a Watergate scenario, where the Republicans in the Senate ask him to resign. Really? You've had legal analysts say in this morning's testimony the president had a very bad day. Very bad day. Sondland is his kryptonite, effectively. You've had legal analysts say that the president has, in fact, committed a crime and, in fact, should be impeached. All over the map. But there are no legal analysts like me on TV. You've got a lot of people who have these ideological agendas, who know nothing about our history, know nothing about the constitutional system, or who are relatively new to being legal analysts and panic. Now, if you watched or listened to this morning's testimony, you saw legal analysts, some of whom you like, panic. They didn't wait for the Republicans to speak. They took basically what was the first hour, hour and a half, 45 minutes of which was Schiff and the former MSLSD commentator, now the lead majority counsel, and Sondland, his testimony. Pretty much, that was most of it. They didn't wait to hear the other evidence, the other commentary, none of it. So for all intents and purposes, they joined in with the left-wing media crowd. And the left-wing media crowd are excited about what's taking place. They're trying to drive up their ratings, draw attention to themselves, and so forth. Ask yourself a question. Why is Adam Schiff holding hearings tonight? Why does he need to hold so-called impeachment inquiry hearings at nighttime? What are his motivations? This was not discussed once. I'll tell you in a minute. But it's akin with the secret testimony in the bunker of the Capitol building in order to get a feel for what the witnesses will say before you make them public, in order to try and set up the president. Rather than have spontaneous, sworn testimony in front of the cameras, they want to know in advance what these people are going to say so they can make their gotcha questions or promote them or leak it to the media. I told you the other day, and I'll repeat it today, because the legal analysts on TV will not tell you this. The American system and the American people have never, ever seen a process like this. Ever. It is thoroughly corrupt and tyrannical. Thoroughly corrupt and tyrannical, while they're trying to paint the president as corrupt and tyrannical. So the morning, we have this testimony from Sondland. Who is he? He's the ambassador to the European Union. Part of his portfolio was Ukraine. He talked repeatedly about his impressions. Everybody knew. Everybody knew what was going on, ladies and gentlemen. Everybody knew what was going on. He said this over and over again during the morning hearings. Everybody knew. Everybody was in on it. Well, what does that mean? Quid pro quo. Well, we just had two witnesses who testified yesterday that said there was no quid pro quo. We had Yovanovitch, who hates Trump. She said there was no quid pro quo. There's not a single witness who said there was a quid pro quo, at least that they witnessed. And they're not even witnesses for all intents and purposes. That is, they have no idea what the President of the United States actually said or did, because they never spoke with him, never met with him, and know nothing about him. Perfect witnesses, huh? But Mr. Sondland's different, you see, was appointed by Trump, and he's had many discussions with Trump. He can remember some, he can't remember others. This went on all morning. These so-called journalists thought they had the president where they wanted him. The legal analysts were lying or running for the hills, or demonstrating how inept they are at understanding what's taking place. And then comes the afternoon. And I'm on a plane flying back from Florida on JetBlue watching all this, and my wife Julie and I are talking about it. We're shaking our heads at these people. How they pulled the trigger already. We had one legal analyst who was developing an article of impeachment for Adam Schiff. Obstruction of Congress, don't you know? Like they hadn't thought about that. They may not be familiar with what they attempted on the Mueller report, but I'll get to all this as the program proceeds. And I wrote some notes to myself even before the afternoon hearings began and a Republican got to speak, or the later. This thing is set up so the Democrats are all in, get the speeches, then you have Schiff, then you have majority counsel, then they take a break. It's for the fools on TV. And then he runs out and he does a press conference. Here's what I wrote on the plane as I was watching this. Sondland. In order to get military aid, the Ukrainian president had to announce that they were opening an investigation into 2016. That's what Sondland said. That's what he heard. Everybody knew this. So I wrote to myself, when did President Zelensky, the president of Ukraine, make a statement that the Ukrainians had opened an investigation in order to get their military aid? Well, they didn't. They never made such a statement. Well, which day, which time did they make the statement? Well, there was no day, there was no time. Well, then when did this quid pro quo get implemented? Since everybody knew about it, that is, the public statement of an investigation for military aid in exchange for that. Well, it didn't. What was the quid pro quo for a White House meeting? This is the other thing. It's a moving ball. Quid pro quo, military aid if we get a White House meeting. Military aid if you make a public pronouncement that the Ukrainians have begun an investigation. Military aid if you make a public pronouncement that they're going to start an investigation, even if they don't. None of it ever happened. Ever. But everybody knew. Everybody knew. See, what's happening here, ladies and gentlemen, is what happens around the water cooler where you work. People get to talking. They get to gossiping. They share information. They don't get it accurate. Somebody says something as if it's fact. Somebody repeats it. And so your own personalities and preferences and policy views and so forth and so on are projected onto these things. Now, Sondland was later asked, Did you talk to the president about Ukraine much? Oh, yeah, a couple of times, maybe 3, 4, 5, whatever. Did the president ever connect military aid to any investigation? No. No. In fact, the last time I talked to the president, he specifically said, when I asked him an open-ended question about what did he want, he said nothing from the Ukrainians. No quid pro quo, nothing. Tell Zelensky to do what's right. Wow. What are we going to do with this now? Doesn't this sound impeachable, Mr. Producer? I want you to listen to some of the audio when we come back, but I also want you to keep something else in mind. If Donald Trump had followed the status quo of the prior administration, the prior State Department, the prior intelligence agencies, Ukraine wouldn't get a penny in offensive military armaments. Not a penny. Because that was the official policy of the Obama administration, of the John Kerry State Department, of which these long-time career State Department employees worked, and I don't remember them jumping up and down over that, do you? We've gotten a lot of lectures about how important Ukraine is in order to deal with the Russians, and they're right. But it was so important that Obama didn't give them anything in terms of offensive military armaments. And I don't remember State Department employees leaking. I don't remember any of it. I don't even remember Adam Schiff holding hearings complaining about it, or demanding hearings to complain about it. And all the left-wing kook, code pink Democrats all of a sudden are Ronald Reagan military hawks. So if Donald Trump had kept the status quo in place of the Obama administration and the Kerry Clinton State Department, Ukraine wouldn't have gotten a plug nickel in offensive military armaments. And I want to remind you, Russia invaded Ukraine when Obama was president. So there was more of a desperate need, an immediate need for that kind of military aid than even today. And it's needed greatly today. The irony, this sickening irony of all this, that the president who's given them well over $500 million over 3 years of his term in office, he's getting lectured from the Democrat Party, which didn't give that country a dime in offensive military aid when the Russians were invading them. Not a dime. And yet he's being attacked really for policy reasons by the inbreds in the bureaucracy. Excuse me, embeds in the bureaucracy, Mr. Producer. Actually, both. And for not giving them the desperate aid that they needed, coming from Schiff and the other Democrats. All right, we got a ton to follow. Stick with me. Look, we don't panic here. We stick with the facts, the law, the Constitution, logic, rationality. I'm not trying to play to the news media. This isn't new to me. You got to take it all in, understand what's going on, the bigger picture, take it into consideration, and then explain it. I mean, these legal analysts are the worst that I've ever seen. The worst. We'll be right back. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to ask you a question. Did you know withdrawing your cash from the bank can be very risky? That's right, I said it. Let me educate you about this. Banks are now required to spy on us for the government and to report any behavior they think is suspicious. Man, oh man, I was shocked as I read The Secret War on Cash from Swiss America. This new war against cash is really a war against the Constitution, against all freedom-loving Americans. So listen to me. You must read The Secret War on Cash. Get your free copy by calling 800-289-2646, 800-289-2646, or visit SwissAmerica.com. Now, this war on cash is growing daily, and it also includes all forms of digital money. So please, get and read the secret war on cash, free to my listeners, by calling right now, 800-289-2646, 800-289-2646. I want to talk to you about an organization that's doing important work on college campuses across this country. In only 7 years, Charlie Kirk and his team at Turning Point USA have created a conservative grassroots force, organizing and training students at nearly 1,500 colleges, over 250,000 students. Folks, I love Turning Point because they're making a real difference. And with your support, they'll train up our own army of conservatives to take the fight to the campus radicals everywhere. They're playing offense, not defense, and it's working. But they also need your support to ensure conservative values are presented on every college campus in America. And when you support them, your gift is matched, thanks to the generosity of several donors. So please consider supporting Turning Point, that's working tirelessly on college campuses to preserve the belief in limited government, freedom, and free markets to the next generation of conservatives. Go to markforturningpoint.com now and give your support, please. It'll be doubled now through mid-December. That's markforturningpoint.com. By the way, tonight's hearing, the president violated the Impoundment Act, don't you know? This is comical in a sick way. Gordon Sondland, the ambassador to the European Union, at today's hearing. Listen up, legal analysts. Cut 5, go.
But I believe I just asked him an open-ended question, Mr. Chairman.
He asked the president an open-ended question. Go ahead.
But I believe I just asked him an open-ended question, Mr. Chairman. What do you want from Ukraine? I keep hearing all these different ideas and theories and this and that. What do you want? And it was a very short, abrupt conversation. He was not in a good mood. And he just said, I want nothing. I want nothing. I want no quid pro quo. Tell Zelensky to do the right thing. Something to that effect.
So we have the president says he did nothing. The president of Ukraine who says he did nothing. The Secretary of State and the Foreign Minister, both who've listened in the call and have been involved in this, who said he did nothing. We have Gordon Sondland, the first of the witnesses who's actually spoken directly to the President of the United States, quoting the President as saying, I don't want anything, and so forth. Why are we having this hearing? Why are you even talking about impeachment? Ladies and gentlemen, can you get evidence stronger than this? I would ask the legal analysts. Maybe it's the Democrats who should walk up to Adam Schiff and suggest that he resign. Has that occurred to any of the legal analysts? Can you get stronger evidence than this? And this witness is called by the Democrats. Cut 6, go.
Did the president ever tell you personally about any preconditions for anything?
No.
Okay, so the president never told you about any preconditions for the aid to be released?
No.
The president never told you about any preconditions for a White House meeting?
Personally, no.
You said you didn't have your records or your documents from the State Department, but if you did, there wouldn't be any document or record that ties President Trump personally to any of this, correct?
Boy, I don't want to speculate what would be...
your documents or records.
I don't recall anything like that.
Okay.
No.
Good heavens, okay.
Wow. Nope, President never told him any of those things, and he's one of the point men. He actually spoke directly to the President, unlike all the other witnesses the Democrats have. Spoke directly to the President. President didn't mealy-mouth. He didn't go, what, where, how. No preconditions. None whatsoever. President didn't raise any preconditions for the release of military aid. And the concerns the President had were also reinforced today that Ukraine is and was thoroughly corrupt. And he was deeply concerned about and the failure of Europe to chip in what Europe should chip in to help defend Ukraine. Lots more. I'll be right back. I talk about Hillsdale College a lot, about its rigorous classical liberal arts curriculum and its exceptionally bright and patriotic students. 175 years ago, Hillsdale was found with a mission defined by 4 enduring purposes: learning, character, faith, and freedom. While many institutions have lost their way, Hillsdale College maintains an unwavering commitment to learning, character, faith, and freedom. I've also talked many times about Hillsdale's great president, Dr. Larry Arnn, one of the finest Americans I know. He explains that these 4 purposes, learning, character, faith, and freedom, remain inseparable in the activity of education at Hillsdale College. Now at Hillsdale, faith and learning are integrated toward God because He is the first authority. If you've ever wondered why I love Hillsdale College, now you know. Hillsdale College, pursuing truth and defending liberty since 1844. Learn more at levinforhillsdale.com, Levin for Hillsdale.com. You know, this is a step-by-step process when I do this show, so sit tight. We've got a lot to go over, and I think you'll be better informed after it, as opposed to watching cable and network and listening to the network news on this program. That I'm sure of. Gordon Sondland. Cut 7, go.
Just to sort of be clear here, ultimately the aid was lifted on September 11th. There was never any announcement by the Ukrainians about any investigations they were going to do, correct?
Correct.
The Ukrainians never, to your knowledge, started any of these investigations, correct?
Not to my knowledge.
Consequently, these allegations that there was a quid pro quo that had to be enforced before the aid was released, that never came to fruition, right?
I don't believe so.
So why are we here? Why are we here? These other people aren't even witnesses. They didn't actually witness anything. The so-called whistleblower didn't actually witness anything. Cut 8, go.
President Trump never told me directly that the aid was conditioned on the meetings. The only thing we got directly from Giuliani was that the Burisma and 2016 elections were conditioned on the White House meeting. The aid was my own personal, guess, based again on your analogy, 2 + 2 = 4.
Now let's stop here a second. But everybody knew, he said earlier, so he contradicts himself. But that said, he also will testify that Giuliani never brought up military aid. Ever. You know, you got to feel for Giuliani, too. He doesn't get an opportunity to defend himself. Well, Mark, he won't go in front of this committee. That's not defending yourself. That's surrendering yourself to a tyrannical tribunal. As I said, America has never seen anything like this. No president has ever experienced anything like this. In fact, no American citizen has ever experienced anything like this. And for what? I'm sitting here, aren't you, wondering, I mean, apart from the political and ideological motivations, as a rational matter, they don't have anything here. They keep twisting and bullying, and doesn't this mean you? And you don't dispute what the so-called said. I heard this day in and day out, which is a prosecutor's trick. Continue, please.
You didn't talk to President Trump when Ambassador Taylor says that that's what you told him? Is that your testimony here?
My testimony is I never heard from President Trump that aid was conditioned on an announcement of elections.
So you never heard those specific words?
Correct.
Right, but
never heard those words.
Now that's the former MSLSD legal analyst who was so good at being an analyst on MSNBC that he's now the lead lawyer for the committee. He's pressing him. You sure about this? Oh, yeah. This weren't his exact words, though, were they? Cut 9, go.
So you do acknowledge you spoke to President Trump as you indicated in that text, right?
If I said I did, I did.
And that after that conversation, you were still under the impression that the aid was contingent on these public announcements.
I did not get that from President Trump.
You see, they can't really successfully make the case because they don't have any case. So they keep pushing an innuendo, an implication. And the media, unbelievable. There we are on the plane, and my wife shows me a headline from the Wall Street Journal. And I have to paraphrase it. I didn't memorize it, but it's pretty close. That Sondland testifies Trump tied military aid to Biden investigation. That is such a lie. Such a complete lie. And this is what spooked the legal analysts all over cable TV, those who are not in the tank ideologues but turned out to be worse, they drew the same conclusion. And that's not what the man said. Didn't even come close to saying that. And they couldn't wait to let it play out or anything else. It was a lie. They went with the lie. The media went with the lie. And early on, that's what you heard, a lie. But the Republicans, they got a shot too. Here's Jim Jordan at the hearing today. Cut one, go.
Ambassador, when did it happen?
When did what happen?
The announcement. When did President Zelensky announce that the investigation was going to happen? On page 14, you said this: was there a quid pro quo? Today's your opening statement. As I testified previously, with regard to a requested White House call, White House meeting, the answer is yes, that there needed to be a public statement from President Zelensky. When the chairman asked you about the security assistance dollars, you said there needed to be a public announcement from Zelensky. So I'm asking you a simple question. When did that happen?
Never did.
Never did. They got the call July 25th. They got the meeting, not in the White House, but in New York on September 25th. They got the money on September 11th. When did the meeting happen again?
Never did.
You don't know who was in the meeting?
Which meeting are you referring to?
The meeting that never happened. Who was in it? You know how you know how Zelensky announced it? Did he tweet it? Did he do a press statement? Did he do a press conference? You know how that happened? I mean, you got all three of them wrong. They get the call, they get the meeting, they get the money. It's not 2 + 2, it's 0 for 3. I mean, I've never seen anything like this. And you told Mr. Castor that the president never told you that the announcement had to happen to get anything. In fact, he didn't just not tell you that. He explicitly said the opposite. The gentleman from Texas just read it. You said to the President of the United States, "What do you want from Ukraine?" The President: "I want nothing. I want no quid pro quo. I want Zelensky to do the right thing. I want him to do what he ran on." What did he run on, Ambassador Sondland?
Transparency.
And dealing with corruption, right?
That's right.
Mr. Castor raised another important point. Why didn't you put that statement in your opening statement? I think you said you couldn't fit it in. Is that right? Said we might be here for 46 minutes instead of 45 minutes.
It wasn't purposeful, trust me.
Wasn't purposeful?
No.
Couldn't fit it in a 23-page opener. The most important statement about the subject matter at hand, the President of the United States in a direct conversation with you about the issue at hand, and the President says, let me read it one more time. What do you want from Ukraine, Mr. President? I want nothing. I want no quid pro quo. I want this new guy, brand new guy in politics. His party just took over. I want Zelensky to do the right thing. I want him to run on and do what he ran on, which is deal with corruption. And you can't find time to fit that in a 23-page opening statement. You know what a quid pro quo is?
I do.
This for that, right? Looks to me like Ukraine got that 3 times, and there was no this. We didn't do anything. Or excuse me, they didn't have to do anything. I've never seen anything like that. And this is when the call came out. Y'all remember this? When the call came out, everyone said we're gonna quid pro quo. There's gonna be that was what was in the call, and of course that didn't happen. That didn't happen. Remember what the complaint said? Remember what the memo said of the whistleblower? This call was frightening. This call was scary. All those things. None of that materialized.
Outstanding. Then there's John Ratcliffe, also outstanding today. Cut 2, go.
Ambassador Sondland, I'm going to try and quickly move to summarize all of your direct communications with President Trump as it relates to this inquiry, and of course you can correct me if I get it wrong. On May 23rd, you had a group meeting that included what you called a vanilla request about ending corruption involving Ukrainian oligarchs, correct?
Correct.
On July 25th, you called President Trump to say you were on your way to Ukraine, but nothing of substance occurred on that call, correct?
Correct.
On July 26, you had a 5-minute call at a restaurant that you didn't originally remember because it, according to your statement this morning, quote, did not strike me as significant at the time, end quote, but once refreshed, recalled that the primary purpose was a rapper named A$AP Rocky, correct?
Correct.
And on September 9th, and most importantly, reading from your deposition, you called President Trump to ask him, what do you want from Ukraine? He responded, I want nothing. I want no quid pro quo. I want Zelensky to do the right thing. I want him to do what he ran on. And what he ran on was fighting corruption, correct?
Correct.
And then lastly, on October 2nd, in a random in-person meeting that you had at an event for the Finnish president, you ran into President Trump and advised him that you'd been called to testify before Congress, and he said to you, good, go tell the truth.
That's correct.
All right. And that is the entirety of your recollection of your direct communications with President Trump about these matters.
I may have had another call or meeting or two. I wish, Mr. Radcliffe, I had the record.
I understand, but this is what you recall.
This is what I recall.
Okay. So stop me if there's anything sinister or nefarious in any of this. A vanilla request about corruption, a call to say I'm on my way to Ukraine, a 5-minute call you didn't remember as significant, but its primary purpose was to discuss a rapper, a call that you made where the president said, I want nothing, I want no quid pro quo, I want Zelensky to do the right thing, I want him to do what he ran on, and him telling you to go tell Congress the truth. Anything sinister or nefarious about any of that?
Not the way you present it.
Okay, and that is the truth as you've presented it, correct?
Correct.
All right, why that's important, Ambassador Sondland, is because none of that is hearsay. None of that is speculation. None of that is opinion. That is direct evidence. And ultimately, that is what, if this proceeds to the Senate, they're going to care about. Unlike this proceeding, which has been based on largely speculation and presumption and opinion, this is direct testimony and direct evidence. And to that point, none of that included evidence about the Bidens, and none of that included evidence about military assistance, because President Trump never mentioned either of those to you, correct?
That's correct.
All right. So going back to the July 26th call, because it's going to be a spectacle tomorrow, you didn't remember it because it didn't strike you as significant at the time. Is it fair to say that if the President of the United States was asking you to do or say something improper or unlawful, that would have been significant to you?
Yes.
All right. And if that call was part of a bribery or extortion scheme that you were part of, as Democrats have alleged, you'd remember that as significant, wouldn't you?
I was not a part, and I would have remembered.
I understand that, and I agree with you. Let's turn to the quid pro quo, because it's been reported in the papers that this was blockbuster testimony today about quid pro quo and new evidence. To be fair to you, Ambassador Sondland, according to your statement today, as you say on page 14, as you testified previously, this was your opinion that there was a quid pro quo, correct?
The 2016 Burisma and the 2016 election and Burisma in return for the White House meeting. That's
right.
Correct.
So you've shared that before. To that point, to be clear again, on the part of it that relates to military assistance, though, you don't have any direct evidence from President Trump about that part of it. That's your 2+2 part of the equation, right? The presumption. Correct?
That's correct.
All right. And you understand also that others disagreed. Yesterday we heard from Mr. Morrison, Ambassador Volker. They testified that they didn't see a quid pro quo. Do you understand that?
I understand that. That's what they said.
That reasonable people could look at all of this and come to different conclusions. Correct?
Correct.
I yield back.
Well, I think we have to impeach the president over this, don't you, Mr. Producer? Look, there's a ton more aspects of this I want to get to. We'll be right back. If you've been thinking about your home security, there's no better time to get it than right now. This week, Simply Safe is offering my listeners their best deal of the year. You'll get 25% off any new system, plus a free HD security camera. Now, you hear me sing the praises of Simply Safe Home Security on the show every week. It's the best home security, period. And with Simply Safe, you'll get everything you need to keep your home safe. Entry sensors, motion sensors, a smart lock, video doorbells, security cameras, plus 24/7 professional monitoring with police dispatch that's 3.5 times faster. It's the home security I trust. please go to simplysafemark.com to get 25% off your system plus a free security camera. This is the best deal you'll ever find on home security. 25% off and a free security camera at simplysafemark.com. That's simplysafemark.com. A lot more good than you think. Polls are starting to turn against the Democrats. People are not liking this. And you know what's funny? If it gets to the Senate, it eventually will, and because McConnell won't cut it off, you'll have a trial of sorts. We'll still hear what the Democrats have to say, just repeated in the Senate. But if McConnell's going to have a trial, he better call the right witnesses. And I better not hear any Republicans say, protect the whistleblower. The whistleblower is not protected under the law. Ladies and gentlemen, I have read the law. I've read the law. Why would you protect somebody who's not protected under the law? That's the real cover-up, but I'll get all this later. Got a good, fulsome show ahead of us. All right, let's see here, Mr. Producer. I am a-looking, as I always do. All right, I want to tell you about something. Cyber thieves are stealing American homes. I'm telling you the truth. You wouldn't imagine it, but it's true. Guess where your home's legal title and mortgage documents are kept? Online, wide open, for anyone and everyone to see. Your signature and everything thieves need to take over ownership of your home is easily available online. Thieves forge your name off the title, then refile the deed so it appears you sold it. Then they go to unscrupulous lenders and borrow money using your home's equity. Then they disappear, stick you with the payments, and yet your equity is gone. Banks, insurance, and identity theft programs do not protect you. No. Home Title Lock protects you. Home Title Lock puts a virtual firewall around your home's title and mortgage. They monitor the black market to see if your home is for sale. Your home's equity is your retirement, your emergency fund. It may be your biggest asset. It is for most people. Let me help protect it with 60 risk-free days. 60 of Home Title Lock. Go to HomeTitleLock.com, enter your address, see if you're already a victim. If you're not, thank goodness. But they'll give you 60 risk-free days. Protect your home. Defend yourself at HomeTitleLock.com, HomeTitleLock.com. That's HomeTitleLock.com. How much time do I have left, Mr. Producer? Not enough time to do it all. And so I have a question for you. And we'll carry this over into the next side, too. An investigation of Ukraine's interference in our election. Should we, the American people, the voters, the president, simply ignore the activities of Ukraine in 2016? Along with the DNC and they're engaging in election interference in 2016? Should we just ignore it? That's what the Democrats are saying. Is it not imperative to investigate this? Don't we have an obligation to do that? That is it not an abuse of our electoral system to ignore it? I must be missing something. Didn't Chuck Schumer call for a special counsel and Nancy Pelosi and the entire conga line of Democrats and Democrat Party media gave us a special counsel? 2.5 years, $40 million of investigations, hundreds of subpoenas, hundreds of witnesses, 13 foreign countries involved, thousands and thousands, literally millions of documents provided. We needed to get to the bottom of Russia and Trump. Well, they got to the bottom of it and there was nothing there. Now it comes to Ukraine and the Democrats. There are serious stories out there that they're dismissing. In Politico, the New York Times, and elsewhere, about Ukraine's interference in the 2016 election for the purpose of defeating Donald Trump, sabotaging his campaign, Politico said, on the side of Hillary Clinton. That the Clinton campaign, the DNC, the Obama State Department, and the Obama administration were involved. This is not theory. This is a fact. But because it involves Democrats, we're not allowed to look at. Don't we, the people, have a right to know what took place? That's what the president's saying. The supreme judicial chieftain of the Mark Levin Show. How do you like that one, Mr. Producer? They come up with these weird names on TV. Weird names on TV. By the way, do you realize how much damage these Democrats and the media are doing to our relationship with Ukraine while they claim to be worried about the Ukraine? They're trashing the president of the Ukraine, a real reformer. To believe Adam Schiff, these legal analysts, these journalists, and all the rest of them, you have to believe that the president of Ukraine is an abject liar. He says nothing happened. Don't you think he'd know at some point if something happened? He says nothing happened. Now, who are you going to believe? All the opinion testimony, all the hearsay testimony? And by the way, Adam Schiff, if you're going to continue to give testimony, tell us what everybody is saying, cherry-picking what they're saying, drawing your stupid lines together, we're still waiting, by the way, for your evidence of Russia collusion with the Trump campaign. You filthy liar. That's all you ever do is you lie to the American people. So, of course, Nancy Pelosi would be attracted to you as the leading this effort. If you're going to lie, then get your ass in the witness chair, be sworn in, so you can be charged with perjury. If you want to give testimony based on the testimony of opinion and hearsay witnesses as well as Mr. Sondland, then get in the chair, get sworn in, and act like a man, you little mouse, you little creep. Guy gives his own testimony. Buffoon. Now, this is all such a lie. I got to thinking, ladies and gentlemen, more to come. Let's take a look at Russia and the Democrats in Congress and the Democrats in the media. Without any facts whatsoever. We get a special counsel for a criminal investigation. Schumer pushes for it. Pelosi, the media, everybody on the left. The report comes out, it's not good enough. They want classified information. They want secret grand jury information in violation of federal law. They want FBI raw notes called 302s in violation of federal law. They went after Don Trump Jr. for nothing. Now let's look at Ukraine. No special counsel. No to the testimony of the so-called whistleblower. No to the testimony of Hunter Biden. No to Republican witnesses without the approval of Schiff. And no to a president's lawyer being present. Isn't it funny? So it's all right to investigate Republicans and a Republican president, and to use standards that have never, ever been imagined, let alone applied, to a president of the United States. When it comes to the Russia collusion, the investigation launched against this president was unprecedented. When it comes to the Democrat Party collusion with Ukraine, same thing. They unleashed an investigation of the president. They can't call Hunter Biden because his name's not Don Jr. You got a hell of a lot more information floating around there about Hunter Biden than you ever had with Donald Trump Jr. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Unbelievable. And the facts don't matter. And they're never going to matter with these people. I said the other day, who do you think the Ukrainians prefer as President of the United States, Trump or Obama? There's not even a doubt. No doubt. Then we get to this issue of obstruction that I would like to discuss with you briefly. Everybody knows that the Democrats are going to use obstruction of Congress as a charge, so nothing genius there from our legal analysts. But has there been obstruction of Congress? Seems to me the people doing the obstruction are the Democrats. I just told you why. They're obstructing Congress, and they're in the majority. But let's move on from that point. Let's take a short trip down memory lane. I thought Nancy Pelosi said this is not an official impeachment inquiry. Don't use the word impeachment. Remember that, Mr. Producer? Just an inquiry that might lead to impeachment, but the Judiciary Committee does the impeachment inquiry, not the Intelligence Committee. That's what she said in order to protect the 31 stooges they have there, so-called moderate Democrats. Yeah, that's pretty funny. Moreover, the House Intelligence Committee. The House Intelligence Committee isn't the full House of Representatives. Well, Mark, the House of Representatives voted on rules empowering the House Intelligence Committee to do what it's doing. I repeat, it's not an official impeachment inquiry, according to Nancy Pelosi. That's not what that resolution says. In any event, there's separation of powers issues. Separation of powers issues. How they'll be resolved, we don't know, because we have activists on the courts now who want to get involved in these things rather than leave it to the political branches. The President of the United States has said, I'm not providing you with witnesses, I'm not providing you with documentation. This is an illegitimate impeachment inquiry. Given the history of how impeachment inquiries have been handled in 3 prior cases with Johnson, Nixon, and Clinton. This is a rogue Democrat operation that's aimed at 2020, not at holding a president accountable. I mean, if Adam Schiff really thought he had a case, he would follow the standards that were applied in the past. But he doesn't have a case. So he's Joseph Stalin incarnate when it comes to process. That's what he is. In fact, Joseph Stalin would be proud of little Adam Schiff. He'd be saying to himself, wow, even in the greatest constitutional republic ever founded, look how this guy gets away with tyranny. I wish I had figured out how to do that. Instead, I had to slaughter 60 million people. Okay, there we are. So there's legitimate separation of power questions. So the President of the United States, who gave everything and anything to Robert Mueller and the 19 band of liberal Democrat donors and hacks, who he called assistant prosecutors, President said, you know what? This is never going to end. They're trying to cripple my presidency. Look at these subpoenas. Subpoenaing my kids, my former business partners, my accountants, my banks. They want my tax returns. This is just intended to destroy this presidency and undermine the republic because they're power hungry. They believe they should have won in 2016, and they insist they must win in 2020. They're undermining our constitutional order. They're undermining the traditions and customs that we've had when it comes to law and order and, yes, impeachment. So this president's taking a stand. He's actually defending the Constitution. Hey, pay attention, you legal analysts. I'm educating you. He's defending the office of the presidency because no presidency should be treated this way. Obama wasn't. Or use process to try and destroy a president and his administration because you don't like the outcome of an election. We've never seen subpoenas like this, both in content and numbers. We've never seen hearings like this, ever, in American history. Ever. And we've never seen news coverage like this when it comes to a political party. The president has said, he's courageously said, all right, I'm taking a stand here. He's never defied a court order. If a court rules one way or another, he'll follow it. And so what Schiff is saying is this is obstruction of Congress. He used to say obstruction of justice, but he's such an idiot, and so did the legal analysts. I said it can't be obstruction of justice. We're not in the justice system. It will be obstruction of Congress. And so that's the term they're throwing around now. So the man who is obstructing the ability to have a real hearing on a matter that is not an impeachment matter, and who's covering up for a so-called whistleblower with whom he's colluded in order to take down a president, is arguing about obstruction of Congress. The majority, which is obstructing the Republicans and their ability to call witnesses and so forth, he calls President Trump obstructing Congress. Where have all these witnesses come from, Mr. Producer? They're current or former administration officials, aren't they? They're of the swamp or were of the swamp. President's not doing the greatest job in the world, is he? In obstructing Congress. You had this Sondland today over and over and over again. I needed access to my records, access to my records. No, you didn't. President can commit perjury, extortion, quid pro quo. These are the phrases they've been running. High crimes, treason, high crimes, misdemeanors. No. So what do you need your notes for? And he emphatically said, no, the president didn't tell him to do these things. In fact, has there been a witness yet, even the phony witnesses, who has said the president instructed them to do anything? Not one! But the legal analyst said, my God. The president really stepped in it. You know, he tweeted the other day. He did what? He tweeted? Oh, yeah? Well, there was a witness there. Witness intimidation. Really? Witness intimidation. Sick. The whole damn thing's sick. I'll be right back. Thanksgiving is only a week away, ladies and gentlemen. Still enough time to get rid of the turkey neck and sagging jawline and get compliments around the dinner table. If you haven't tried Genucel's breakthrough jawline treatment with MDL technology, then pick up the phone or go to Genucel.com right now. Order today. Chamonix will include their classic Genucel eye bags and puffiness absolutely free. And you'll also receive their immediate effects for results you'll see in 12 hours. You can also get the top-selling Genucel eyelid for sagging, droopy eyelids absolutely free. Everyone will see the difference, guaranteed, or 100% of your money back. That's the Chamonix promise. Call 800-SKIN-604 or go to Genucel.com. And from now until Thanksgiving, you'll also get the Genucel XV anti-wrinkle treatment for fine lines and wrinkles as a third free gift. And shipping is also free. 800-SKIN-604, 800-SKIN-604, or Genucel.com. So why are they holding impeachment hearings, so-called, in the middle of the night on the East Coast? What's the rush, ladies and gentlemen? I think the Clinton one took 6, 8, 9 months. I'm doing this off the top of my head. Nixon resigned, but that was several months more longer than this. What's going on, folks? I told you the other day, they're in a race with the Inspector General of the Justice Department in his FISA report, and they're in a race with the Attorney General and the U.S. Attorney in Connecticut, who are investigating 2016. Let me ask you another question of logic here. The Attorney General of the United States is investigating with the U.S. Attorney in Connecticut, Durham, is the point man, what took place in 2016. Let me do this, right, Mr. Producer? We'll go back and forth on this. Right? It's a public investigation, correct? Was announced. It's criminal. It's criminal investigation, wide-ranging, correct? Why, then, all this talk about Trump demanding an investigation of 2016 when there's already an investigation of 2016? Well, he wants the help from Ukraine. But Ukraine's going to have to help our Department of Justice anyway. Can't send FBI agents into a foreign country to investigate a foreign government without their support and help. Ask Mr. Mueller, who spoke to 13 of them in his investigation of Russia, so-called. But the Bidens, he wanted the Bidens investigated. He didn't say he wanted the Bidens investigated. He asked them whether they would look into it. And I don't know why that's a problem. Ladies and gentlemen, maybe an investigation of Hunter Biden will finally clear the little bastard. I mean, the guy. A friend of mine sent me an email today. This congressman from New York, who's a real slug, thinks he's a tough guy, is actually quite the opposite. Appears to me to be transitioning, perhaps, from a human being to a whatever. So he's yelling at Sondland. And they have these clapping seals in the audience. So Adam Schiff's taking this very seriously, and Nancy Pelosi's very prayerful as they load up the audience with clapping seals. It's such a clown show, it's not even funny. It's a circus. And Adam Schiff is the bozo of the circus. A lot of dancing dogs there. Remember Barnum and Bailey? They destroyed Barnum and Bailey, they did. First they took out the elephants. Then they shut it down. Because PETA and the liberals and the media didn't like it. Really smart over there. So you can't even take your kids to the great circus that used to be. Was destroyed. Anyway. And their popcorn, by the way, is better than the popcorn of the movie theaters. I have to say that. Did you ever go to Barnum and Bailey Circus, Mr. Producer? Weren't they great? Well, they destroyed it. And by the way, the company that owns it destroyed it, in my humble opinion. Nobody's going to go to the big circus without the elephants. Anyway, I digress here. Let's get back to this. Why would launching an investigation in Ukraine concern the Democrats? What do they care? If it's a non-issue, as the late, great Anderson Cooper had to say, of the Stormy Daniels interview fame, why do they care? If the president said, why don't you investigate the 2016, what took place in 2016? And why do they care when it's already being investigated? And he's basically telling the president of Ukraine, please assist my guys. He even refers him to the attorney general. Why is that a problem? If it's nonsense or a right-wing conspiracy, what's the problem? Why such frenzied, desperate pushback by the Democrats and such dismissal by the media? Because it is a problem for them. We know this thanks to left-wing kook Kenneth Vogel, who is a left-wing kook writer for the New York Slimes now. But his factual dissertation in the article and evidence is so overwhelming, you can't dismiss it. And then he did it again, I think it was in May 2018, in the New York Slimes. And they slapped this boy down so hard it's not even funny on the left. They've slapped him down so hard we haven't heard from him again on this. Instead he's out there attacking John Solomon and so forth. So why would launching an investigation with the assistance of Ukraine or Ukraine in launching an investigation concern the Democrats? Because their fingerprints are all over 2016, that's why. Same reason they wouldn't investigate their role with Russia in 2016. Everything but. The same reason they're holding nighttime hearings and impeachment to try and get in front of the Horowitz IG report, to try and get in front of the Durham criminal investigatory report. That's what this is all about. Even with the propagandists dressed up as legal analysts, even with the cowards dressed up as legal analysts, even with the journalists dressed up as journalists, I think this ultimately is all going to backfire. Devin Nunes. Do we have time? I don't think so. No time. We'll play a little Devin Nunes. He deserves it. He's really good each and every day. I watch these hearings and I say to myself, good God, how do people do this for a living, Mr. Producer? The Democrats scheming every moment of their careers. How do they do this for a living? Lie. They lie so easily now, it's just part of their character. Same with the media when you look at Fake Tapper, or Donnie Lemon, or Fredo Cuomo. Or if you gaze your eyes over at MSLSD, and that wonderful lineup there, Andrea Mitchell, Brian Williams, all the retreads. And of course the great Al Sharpton there, he's very intrepid. I'll be right back. The president is defending the Constitution. He's defending separation of powers. He's defending the office of the presidency. He's defending your franchise and those of you who voted for him. If he capitulated to all this stuff, our country would be quite different. Our president wasn't prepared to do business as usual and just write these massive hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars and millions of dollar checks. We all know that. This crap that's going on in the House of Representatives, since the Democrats took over, now they're in a race to do it as fast as they can, using rules that have never been used in this country, ever, against any public official at the federal level under our Constitution. You know, in a world that has lost its way, lost respect for logic, law, and American history, who's defending you in Washington? Who speaks for conservatives? AMAC, the Association of Mature American Citizens, that's who. Oh, I'm going to stop a second. This guy Maloney from New York is one of the biggest jackasses of a committee of jackasses. He thinks he's a tough guy. You tough guy there, Mr. New York? Mr. Maloney? You sit there and you yell at witnesses? I hope you don't do that at home. You don't talk to your family that day, do you, Mr. Punk? Mr. Tough Guy? Trying to force people to answer leading questions? Mr. Producer, Do a quick Google check. When did this clown get elected? Is he one of the 31 moderates? Or is he just another lunatic? Now let me get back to a wonderful, wonderful sponsor, AMAC. You know, in a world that has lost its way, lost respect for logic, law, and American history, who's defending you in Washington? Who speaks for conservatives? AMAC, the Association of Mature American Citizens. That's who. Now, AMAC gives its members valuable, everyday benefits and discounts. I mean, they're not only valuable, they're amazing. They're great benefits and discounts. While boldly defending America's priceless Constitution, sacred history, individual liberties, and basic moral compass. AMAC fights for border and national security, freedom, speech, freedom of religion, and values articulated by Reagan and Trump, like a strong defense, limited government, and lower taxes. Hard to believe we're here, but we are. And AMAC is dedicated to remembering past sacrifices and preserving America's core values for the future. They oppose the rise of socialism and the Medicare for All scheme that will destroy Medicare and all private health care. If you're not an AMAC member, you should be. The next election will decide our nation's fate. We will either be true to America's noble past and principles, or we'll be in the crapper. Folks, sign up today. The great discounts and benefits, plus they'll defend your country. That's amac.us, amac.us, amac.us. All right. So this jerk was elected in 2012? Does it say what part of New York he represents? Hudson Valley. Isn't that like corrupt over there? Menendez, didn't he come out of there? Oh, yeah. Oh, Menendez is New Jersey. Well, what's the difference? No offense. Oh, he's Hudson County. Well, anything named Hudson is a problem. No offense. All right, let's pull up our call screen, Mr. Producer. Give me some really good caller there. An irregular American or regular Americans? Yes. XM Satellite, Fred in California. Go right ahead, sir.
Mr. Levin, what a pleasure to speak to you.
Well, it is. Thank you.
You know what? I'm so glad I got through to you. You just said what I called about.
I don't know. What did you call about?
We're talking about leading on the witnesses. I've watched. I'm not a lawyer, but I watched enough law television.
You're not a defendant, are you, sir?
At one point, I was.
Yeah. Well, who wasn't? All right, go ahead. Yeah.
But really, I'm at the gym. I'm on the treadmill, and I live here in Northern California. Which, believe it or not, I'm in a Republican district, District 1, but I live in a liberal town. So we have Fox News, CNN, NBC, MSNBC. I'm listening on my headphones now. I'm listening to Adam Schiff, and he's asking these questions, and if he doesn't get what he wants, he continues to change it and rearrange it until he tries to get what he wants out of it, And I was thinking, he's leading the witness. And what you just said about the guy from New York, these guys just seem really angry if they don't get the answers they want right off the bat. So, just a frustrated American.
I particularly like they have a new line now, the Democrats, when they say, I don't have any recollection of when they say, well, if fill in the blank says something happened, you'd have no reason to disbelieve them, would you? Now, who answers a question like that? The answer to a question like that would be, Congressman, what kind of question is that? I have no reason to believe or disbelieve them. I don't have any knowledge on that matter. So the whole thing is a setup. It's very sleazy. Those kinds of questions wouldn't work in a court of law, and I love it. People say, we're not in a court of law, like we're idiots. Really? You think? But shouldn't the standards even be higher when you're talking about an impeachment process, sir, than a court of law? Shouldn't they even be? Because you're affecting the entire country. All right, the answer is yes. Thank you for your call. All right, let's see here. I'm looking. Jerry, Long Island, New York, the great WABC. Go.
Mark, wonderful speaking to you. I love your analysis. I'm trained as a doctor, and I'm just watching all these debates going on. The thing that struck me is we're dealing with political projection, which is a form of psychosis. the individual...
Wait a minute, I can tell you're not a proctologist. What are you, a psychiatrist, psychologist?
No. Well, anyway, looking at psychiatry or the way they interact, they basically don't own the responsibility for their own actions. Chip, for instance, who's a proxy of a oligarch who's basically subverting the Constitution and destroying it and basically lying through his teeth, has taken over the Congress. And
hold on now. So you're saying it's Nancy Pelosi who's the oligarch?
Well, they're interrelated, but it's the same phenomenon. Basically, what they're doing is they're projecting responsibility onto the victims, and they proceed on that basis. They lack the ability to weigh their own behavior. They're only interested in power. That's all it is.
How do you explain the legal analysts?
Well, the legality is something they're hiding behind, but they've been so involved. In other words, if you look at all the organizations that they produced and what's going on the West Coast, Antifa, Black Power, all this other stuff, all this garbage, basically what they're doing is they're creating a class of victims who are going to take responsibility for their bad behavior.
Yeah, I think you're right.
That's the central mechanism. That's what I see as the central mechanism. We're dealing with a cultural psychosis. These people don't deserve to have power because they're incapable of reflecting on what they're doing to us.
But a lot of crazy people do get power.
No, but the point is that this is what they're doing. You can explain. It's one explanation. You know, take it or leave it. But to me,
you're a psychologist, did you say?
No, I'm a doctor.
You're a doctor. I want to do a little experiment with you, doctor.
Okay.
I'm going to read some headlines to you, and you tell me from which website this comes. Tonight. Oh, that's not it. Ambassador drops bombs. Followed president's orders. Giuliani pushed quid pro quo. Pence knew. Everyone was in the loop. These are headlines and links. It was no secret. Pompeo dragged deeper into the probe. Rudy slams GOP impeachment lawyer. Republican witnesses aren't helping Trump. What do you think? These are like 98% hysterically, desperately anti-Trump. There's a lot of other news stories out there that don't read like that. So what website do you think is linking massive headlines and so forth in such a direction?
Well, I think they've...
No, I didn't ask you that. Which website do you think it is?
The fake news has fooled the media for so long.
If I told you that was the Drudge Report, what would you say?
I'm not that familiar. It's hard.
All right, thanks for your call. This is our nightly or every other nightly look. Ambassador drops bombs. No, that was the morning where that idiocy went on. And where does that come from? Yahoo. Yahoo's not even that good. Let's see. Next headline. Followed president's orders. Let's see, where's that one coming from? Ooh, Reuters. So there's a headline there. Giuliani pushed quid pro quo. Let's see, where's that one there? The Associated Press. Let's continue to look, shall we? I think I will. Pence knew. My God, let's take out the whole administration. All right, where's that one coming from? Oh, Mediaite. Yeah, that's a great job. Mediaite. Oh, well then that's that. Here's the thing, folks. Those of you who are watching this closely, do you really need people to tell you what you're hearing and seeing? This is what's different about the media today. We're such a divisive country. I'm going to tell you something. When you read the headlines from these media outlets, and you look how they're put in these marquee headlines on these various websites, that's what's killing our country. This isn't even an attempt to be objective or balanced or anything of the sort. And in my book, among other things, I say these media outlets, whether they're new media outlets like websites or so forth, they have an obligation to be as objective as they can. If they're not going to be, they have an obligation to be transparent, to label themselves properly. If you're anti-Trump, just say it. If you're a Democrat, just say it. Whatever your cause is, say it. Earlier in our history, that's what the newspapers did. They were lined up in one party or another, one belief system or another. Today they pretend. We're going to aggregate news. And you're not aggregating news. You're aggregating and promoting left-wing comments, so-called news, without any reflection on what's actually taking place. It's an abomination. The headline ought to be this. Ambassador says Trump never mentioned quid pro quo. Ambassador says Trump never mentioned military aid. He's the witness. He said that. Every witness, should be the headline, has said no bribery, no quid pro quo, no extortion, no impeachment. That's what's happened. Those are facts. What happened to the Ken Starr one up here? Ken Starr, Republican senators may push Trump to resign. Kenny. Just saying. You want to bet money that doesn't happen? I'll be right back.